Interesting New South Wales police report written in the district of Jabour at Capertee Station on the 3rd of February 1937. It goes on to say the event occurred on Sunday the 31st of January 1937 at 1:15 a.m. when David George Wessel, who returned by car from Portland, saw the hall was burning. No fire brigade was called. The hall's address is listed as Mudgee Street, Capertee, and was classed as a public hall which was unoccupied at the time of the fire. The owner is Joseph Jabour, also of Mudgee Street, Capertee, and it is described as having walls of galvanised iron which were lined with 3-ply. The roof was unlined and was valued at £1,100 in brackets owner's estimate, or £285 in brackets valuer general's department estimate. The building was used as a public hall and was totally destroyed. The contents of the hall were a piano, 30 pine forms, 3 tables, carpet, quantity of crockery, a cabinet, set of scales, quantity of cordials and lollies, and 8 chairs, and was valued at £100 in brackets owner's estimate, and was also totally destroyed. Insurance policy was taken out through the Insurance Office of Australia, which was renewed 4th of March 1935, which was then overtyped with 1936. There were no contents listed and it was valued at £750. It goes on to describe that on the night of the 30th of the 1st, 1937, a social dance was held in the hall which was terminated at 12 midnight. The hall was then locked up by Gabriel Jabour, son of the owner, who left the hall at about 12:15 a.m. on the 31st of January 1937, and who states that there was no sign of fire and that all lamps were extinguished. The report goes on to say the owner bears a good character and is not known to be in embarrassed circumstances. There is no reward by the owner or insurance company. The owner does not suspect any person as incendiary. The police have no definite grounds for suspecting an act of incendiarism. It then goes on to say that Gabriel Jabour was the last person on the premises. He states that he locked all doors. He was amongst the first to reach the hall after the outbreak of fire and states that he had to break in the door to endeavour to gain admittance. Jabour states that he is certain that no one had got into the hall after he locked up and that there is no sign of the fire having originated from the outside. He advances the opinion that some of the dancers who, after the dance was over, who had entered the cloakroom for their hats and coats, may have dropped a cigarette which would eventually cause the fire. When I arrived at 1:20 a.m. on the 31st of January 1937, it was impossible to get into any part of the hall. There was no evidence that the fire had started outside the hall. At the bottom of the second page, it is addressed to E.R. Sim, Esquire the Coroner, at Running Stream. And the rank of the policeman completing it is listed as Constable I/C number 232. The police report goes on to say, I further beg to report that the insurance assessor arrived today and he informed me that he was not asking for an inquiry, but stated that sometimes an inquiry does some good. Gabriel Jabour had a fire at the Ilford store some 2 years ago. In this case, there is no doubt but that the hall was insured for considerably more than its actual value. He says the estimate for the prime cost of the hall is considerably overestimated. And then he then goes on to say David George Wessel came past the hall with George Seymour just about 1 a.m. and there was then no visible signs of the place being on fire. After Seymour had parked his car and Wessel got out into the street, he noticed the hall on fire and it was then blazing fiercely. If the hall was smouldering from a cigarette, it is only reasonable to expect that Wessel would have noticed it as he passed, as he states that he was looked at it when passing. The constable has signed off as I.W. Facer, Constable I/C number 232, Capertee, 3rd of February 1937. Following this part of the report, the coroner has then put his comments and says, as there appears to be no suspicious circumstances and the insurance company do not require an inquiry, I am the opinion an inquiry is unnecessary and would be of no mutual benefit in arriving at the cause of the fire. At the same time, I am of the opinion the hall was very much overinsured, but the insurance company should have rectified that when last renewing the policy. And then we have the signature, which looks like Ezekiel Sim, coroner.